I think it's all about developing those skills within. So, you know, let me give you an example. For the last team I was coaching at youth level, we wanted to create good good communicators because these boys came to us and they were really shy, really quiet. Uh, a lot of them had never played before, never been a part of a team sport. So, I'm looking at these young lads and I'm thinking, well, they're obviously not going to go on and play professionally at 16. They were under 16s at the time. How are we going to help them going into college or sixth form, going into university, going into to work next year? Bearing in mind they were 16 at that time, and for me, it's about just not making a session all about communication. So not a team bonding exercise that's forcing you to talk. It's about you're still doing the focus of football. So you're still doing a focus of, I don't know, let's say a technical session of passing, but you might be adding in certain, I don't know, rules, if you like, that maybe only one person can talk, or maybe only two or three people can talk, and you're not forcing them. Forcing them is the wrong way, but it's kind of manipulating the environment that's just making them feel comfortable enough to then begin to communicate with each other, and naturally over time, when they feel comfortable in that environment, they just begin to do it. I've seen it with my last role, just before I took the manager's role at Ilkley Town with Centralians, which was also women's first team at amateur level. And again, they come to us, and the first couple of sessions, these were fully grown women, a lot of them, and you could just see that there was a lack of certain skills, such as communication or leadership. And I always think sometimes if you make it too conscious, that if you said to someone, right, I want to develop you as a leader, then that maybe makes them feel very pressured. They're not really sure what that means or how to do. Is actually, if you just kind of guide them and let them become that journey on their own through however you're going to do that within your sport, I think naturally that is more beneficial. I look at one of the girls we had at Centralian. She'd never been a captain before, but I met her. She was only 20, and I just love what she was about. She always worked hard. She was very respectful, had a fantastic attitude. So I decided, right, I'm gonna make her the captain. And by giving her that role, just naturally she's become this fantastic leader who's, off pitch doing work such as chatting to all the players in that team, making sure they're all right. If any of them players had any problems, they'd come and speak to her. She would come and feed stuff back to me and say, this particular player is going through a bit of a difficult time, or something like that. She would, take it upon herself to make sure that training standards were met, and stuff like this. And what was so amazing for me is that when she first come, she was a quiet, young woman, and then within the space of 2 or 3 months, and giving her that armband, it's naturally turned her into this leader that was just incredible to see. So yeah, I think sometimes, I actually saw a funny video on Twitter actually yesterday about creating leaders, and the coach turning around to two, I think they were 15-year-olds, saying, right, you two have got the capabilities to be fantastic leaders, but I need you to go and do this, and this. Now, for me, that's not developing a leader. That's telling someone what you want them to be, and they're just going to then copy that or just reflect what you want. It's not developing that. So for me, I think it's always best to, just in my experience, not make that as aware, develop it through the sessions, through the skills, developing from the sports focus, if you like, and then develop that in the background without them actually realising it. And at some point, they will go to themselves, wow, I'm suddenly communicating with everyone, but where's that come from? Coach has never put any place. Oh, well, actually, no, he has. He was making me talk in this session. I was the only one who could talk, or whatever. So that would be for me what I would think from my experience. I think when I was younger, so when I first got into the role at 18, 19, I was very disciplined. And what I mean by that, I had exactly in my head what I wanted to do. My ambition at that point was to become a professional head coach. I wanted to be a manager of a professional football team, whether that would be in the women's side or the men's side. But that was very clear. That was a goal in my head, and I was very disciplined to that. So I wouldn't, if I was coaching, for example, on a Sunday, I wouldn't go out into a nightclub on a Saturday night. If I was going on a CPD event, I would make sure I had that exactly in the diary, and I wasn't going to have any excuses why I couldn't go on that continued professional development event, if I would make sure that I saw every opportunity to do level ones or level twos. But then when I got to university, I was just turned 20 when I got to university, and as you probably hear, university is all about the consensus, if you like, is having a good time and enjoying yourself, and you've got to enjoy yourself now because when you finish, you'll never be able to do this again. And I can remember at that point, I felt really pressured of, oh, I've not done, I've been too serious too soon. I've been too disciplined, and then I really took a step back and kind of just didn't put as much focus. So for about 2 years, I didn't really take any interest about developing myself. I'd gone from being a young man who, would analyze every single action or behavior I had done and the impact on the player at 18, 19 to then being 20 and 21 and just not even thinking about it and just doing it. And then, finishing university and going into a master's, which again is a lot of it is about, we call it a knowledge domain of expert coaching, is actually knowledge of yourself, understanding yourself. And I began to realize, well, I've not developed for 3 years because I've not placed I've lost that discipline I initially had. So, since then I've still got the same goal in the back of my mind of what I want to achieve and where I'm going to hopefully get to at some point. But that discipline has to come in for me. I think, if you don't have discipline in the sense of, just spending 30 minutes to plan a session before, I became that coach that wasn't even planning sessions. I was turning up and just coming up with it on the go. And you think that's awful. You're way better than that. What are you doing? But yeah, since particularly starting that masters now, I've really taken an approach of just having discipline of making sure I'm spending, an hour a day thinking about what I'm going to do. So, for example, we've got the first session at Ilkley Town Women this Sunday. So an hour each day, I'm thinking ahead of what am I going to do within that session. I've got the session plan. I'm thinking about the behaviours I'm going to use, the actions, thinking about the learning activity or the learning design structure. I'm thinking about, the tactical principles that maybe I want to deliver and how I might word those. Then, once I've done that session, I'll probably spend about 2 or 3 days reflecting on that. And, that's really important because I think when you're constantly in that mindset of thinking all the time about coaching, then, opportunities, then you see something about like a UEFA B qualification and you go, right, I'm going to do that. Whereas, let me take you back 3 years ago when I was at university, because I was never thinking about it. There were so many opportunities like CPD or, opportunities to go to professional football academies and things like that. And I never even took them because I wasn't thinking about my journey. For me, it was kind of on a break, and it was right. I need to make sure I enjoy myself now and all that sort of stuff, which is ridiculous when you look back. But anyway, but yeah. So for me, I think you do have to have a bit of discipline. I mean, it's all dependent on your journey and what you want to achieve. But I think if you want to get to the very top that I'm hopefully going to try and get to, you've got to be thinking about that journey. Not all the time, because obviously if we think about it all the time, that might be a bit too much. And that's when, maybe it might cause effects to our mental health and so on. But I think you've got to have it just in the back of your mind and just spend a bit of time. How are you going to develop yourself every single day? So I think when I first started, it was all within youth development, but it was all grassroots, all amateur. So, within those sorts of settings, you are deemed to be the most knowledgeable. And you are in many respects, because even if you're a level 1 qualified coach, you've probably just got a bit more understanding than maybe a couple of the parents have of how you might deliver a session. But yeah, when I finished university, I went into a private football academy. Now, the battle I was always sort of in my mind growing up, not growing up, when I decided I was going to be a coach, was I've not played at a high level. So do I have enough technical understanding? I always felt that was potentially a bit of a problem. I always feel tactics you can learn. Tactics, you don't have to play the game to be a tactician, in my opinion. You can spend hundreds of hours watching football matches, different types of obviously we know teams play different football all across the globe. So tactics was never a problem, but the area of technique and having enough knowledge of technique was always a worry of mine.